I read the news a lot. I read the news nonstop all day, every day. I am a liberal. Oh my God. I've made big lists of my policy positions. I think some of them have been wrong in the past. I'm just trying to learn. But why is it when I go to the Daily Wire, the biggest complaint I tend to have is like, yes, that's framed in a conservative way. Yes, you're using this data. I get it. But not that they're lying. Why is it that when I go to Vox.com, Ezra Klein lies about me in an article and Dave Rubin and others? Why is it that I have to constantly triple check websites like Vox and the Huffington Post? Why is... there was an article, I think it was the Huffington Post, ended up on Wikipedia claiming I invented a Zeppelin. Why is it that when Ted Lieu shows a clip of Candace Owens, it's absurdly out of context and it drags her for something clearly she wasn't really talking about? Listen, let me read the headline. Ted Lieu plays a clip of Candace Owens' comments on Hitler to ridicule Republicans for inviting her to a hearing on white nationalism. First of all, isn't it quite intersectional to allow a black female to speak on issues of white nationalism, especially a conservative one? And also, any honest individual knows that what Candace Owens was essentially trying to say. In fact, she didn't even frame it as poorly as they're trying to claim she did. But even still, like, dude, we know Candace Owens doesn't support white supremacists. It's the most insane rhetoric I have ever heard. And Ted Lieu takes this audio recording and plays it like, I've got you. And this is what disgusts me about people on the left. I have to wonder, is it that they just don't do any research? They just, listen, I think there are a lot of Trump supporters that don't do research. I really do. I've met a lot of them. I think they just hear things on Fox News and repeat them. In fact, Trump often tweets things after hearing about them on Fox News. However, when it comes to articles on big websites, and not necessarily all politicians, but in many instances, what I've seen from the left and the right, why is it that they're not peddling this nonsense? Why is it that Fox was right about Russiagate? Why do you put me in this position, Ted Lieu? Clearly, Candace Owens wasn't trying to defend what Hitler was doing. In this, I didn't make a video about this because I thought it was so dumb when it happened. Candace Owens was asked about nationalism, and she referred to what Hitler was doing because he's a National Socialist, but he was clearly a globalist in the sense that he was trying to annex parts of other countries. Listen, I think Candace Owens definitely didn't phrase what she was trying to say well enough. You got to be very careful and denounce these things outright to make it clear in no uncertain terms. But to act like simply because she didn't say enough, she was in some way trying to support him is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Let's read this. Democratic Rep. Ted Lieu of California on Tuesday played a video of controversial comments Candace Owens made on Adolf Hitler and nationalism as the rising conservative star testified on white nationalism at the invitation of GOP lawmakers. An out-of-context clip taken in bad faith. Gee, where have I heard that before? The hearing was held by the House Judiciary Committee, and Owens was among 8 witnesses on the panel. During his remarks, Lieu noted that the minority party is allowed to choose its own witnesses for such hearings. Of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. Yes, 30 seconds. Even this woman, who I believe is with the Anti-Defamation League, said, well, Owens definitely distanced herself from those comments, which isn't entirely fair in my opinion, but it's true. Candace definitely, sought to clarify and move away from the what people what they were saying about her comments. Here's what she said, something to the effect of, I think this is her quote. I think that the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. She said, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. She goes on to say that he was a National Socialist and that if he just wanted to make Germany great again and make things run well, then fine. Adding that he had dreams outside of Germany and he wanted to globalize and he wanted everybody to be German. Everybody speaking German, everybody to look a different way. That to me is not nationalism. Here's what I hear when she says this. I hear poorly chosen words. In no way do I think she's trying to defend Nazi Germany. That's psychotic, or you're just a liar. And I think what she was trying to say when she said everybody to be German was directly making that point, that he was a genocidal, lunatic who was a demagogue and pointing the finger at people who had literally nothing to do with the problems that were actually being faced by his country. It was a scapegoat. And yes, he wanted everyone to be German. Isn't that like when I hear that, I'm like, I think I understand what he's trying to say. Let's, how about we say, can you clarify that? It sounds like I don't want people to assume you're actually defending. And then she would clearly come out and say, oh, of course not. Of course not. She's making a point about how he literally wanted a German world. Isn't that true? I mean, to a certain extent, I understand there's a nuance here, but I don't think there's anybody in mainstream America, you know, and dude, I don't think we need to say that Hitler is probably like one of the most evil people to have existed in human history. Yeah, he's certainly not the only genocidal maniac, right? We can point the finger at Stalin. That guy was nuts. And then there's often the debate about left, right, you know, which extremist ideology was worse than the other. I don't care. They're all nuts. I'm not, you know what? You want to come to me and tell me that the Nazis were bad? I'll say, you're damn right they were. Hell yeah. Terrible, terrible people. You want to come to me and say the communists were bad? I'll say, damn right. They're terrible, terrible people. It's not that hard to point the finger and say both groups are bad. I'm not going to argue with one over which is worse or not. Let's just recognize they're the bottom of the barrel in terms of the crust and disgusting evil that this planet has seen. But to take her comments out of context this way, or essentially to interpret them in bad faith, as if she was trying to claim she supported anything that lunatic did. That's just absurd. And this is one of the biggest problems we have, the assumption among the left that they know what you're really thinking. What do they do to me? Well, as you all know, they take photos of me from like interviews I've done and try and claim they know what I'm really thinking. Yeah. But Candace Owens shot back in a rather spectacular fashion. And now, at the time of filming this video, she is the #1 US trend. Later in the hearing, Owens bashed Lieu for playing the clip, saying, I think it's pretty apparent that Mr. Lieu believes that black people, she says, I don't even want to read this because I don't want the out of context quotes. She believes that Mr. Lieu holds derogatory views about black people and will not pursue the full clip. That was unbelievably dishonest. I'm deeply offended by the insinuation of revealing that clip without the question that was asked of me. She was then interrupted by, I believe it was Nadler, who said something like, you cannot call members of this committee stupid, which she didn't. They say, in May 2018, the president tweeted Candace Owens of Turning Point USA is having a big impact on politics in our country. She represents an ever-expanding group of very smart thinkers, and it is wonderful to watch and hear the dialogue going on. So good for our country. Owens' comments on Hitler were made in December, but surfaced in February at the time. TPUSA told Insider her remarks were, of course, being misconstrued and taken out of context. During Tuesday's hearing, Owens slammed Democrats and the overall purpose of the occasion. So, look, I'm not a fan of Candace Owens. That doesn't mean I don't like her. It just means that when I look to people who I think are doing a pretty good job politically, she's not. That's a poor way to put it. I don't agree with Candace Owens on most things, nor do I think she has the best representation of a conservative thinker. But I do believe she is particularly poignant and holds an expertise when it comes to being, you know, a black woman, conservative in America. She has a questionable history. I'm not saying anything to be disparaging towards her. She's just not, like, I typically don't really hate. There's very few people I actually detest or hate. And to me, Candace Owens, it's like, oh, I don't agree with her. No, I'm not a fan of her content, you know. But hey, you know, good on her, do her thing. I think it's inappropriate to try and smear her and lie about what she's actually trying to talk about simply because look, man, she wasn't articulate enough. Is that really what the argument is? She wasn't articulate enough and didn't denounce them strongly enough in making her point about nationalism versus globalism. Okay, poor choice of words. That's about it. You know, this kind of stuff is insane to me. But anyway, we'll read a little bit more about what she said. She said, during Tuesday's hearing, she slammed Democrats, saying, the hearing today is not about white nationalism or hate crimes. It's about fear-mongering, power, and control. The goal here is to scare blacks, Hispanics, gays, and Muslims, helping Democrats censor dissenting opinions, helping them regain control. White supremacy, racism, white nationalism, words that once held real meaning, have now become nothing more than election strategies, Owens added. Multiple studies have shown that white nationalism and right-wing violence have been on the rise since Trump took office. You know what one of the big problems is? I took a look at the Anti-Defamation League's definition of right-wing extremism, and it's actually really broad. Anti-government is right-wing. Yes, anti-government is right-wing. Okay, anarchists are not necessarily right-wing. You can be a left-wing anarchist. Typically, when we refer to anarchists in public discourse, we're referring to black-clad individuals smashing things, and they're anti-government too. When they commit these acts of violence, say at Milo Yiannopoulos' event in Berkeley, do we call that right-wing? Honestly, I don't know, but those are anti-government people, right? Why is anti-government right-wing? Why is white supremacy right-wing? Why are all of these things considered right-wing and left-wing is nebulous? And in fact, the Anti-Defamation League considers black supremacy movements to be left-wing. How does that make sense? They hold basically the same ideology as the white supremacists, just different color skin. None of it makes sense. So when you have nonprofits, they say multiple studies. By who? I could make a study right now and claim that right-wing refers to limited government, therefore Antifa is right-wing, which people have tried to do. Framing is everything. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we've definitely seen, like white supremacist violence in the more extreme cases, like more lethal force. We have seen, like the Steve Scalise shooting, we have seen elements of the left using extremely deadly force, mortar shells, explosives, etc. But when it comes to, here's how I frame it. When it comes to low-level terror, bashing people over the head, spray painting things, terrorizing people, harassing them in public, the left wins by leaps and bounds. When it comes to instances of extreme lethal force, the right wins by leaps and bounds. Now, I'm using the colloquial terms in reference to culture, meaning left-wing in terms of culture is progressive and right-wing is considered traditional. So when it comes to the more extreme acts, it's not necessarily in the way I say it, white supremacy, because it's relatively different, but overlapping, and it's hardcore traditionalism. And that's where I think you can say right or left wing. But you have to understand that it's all political, and they're trying to claim that, far right violence dominates because it's a political strategy. It really is. Why is look, I gotta say, I don't understand why you're gonna claim black identity extremism as left wing. That makes no sense. Tariq Nasheed agrees more with conservatives. You know who he is? He's the black identity extremist guy on Twitter. Calls everyone a white supremacist. And he's repeatedly called out immigration and other issues that are really in line with conservatives. Why would they consider that left wing? It makes no sense. All of this data is skewed, and it's meant to push you in certain directions for political power. So I'll leave it there. Stick around. I got some more videos coming up in a few minutes. I will see you then.